So for those of you who have been keeping track, and for those of you who haven't, this is the third venue in Brussels that the Brussels National Conservatism Conference has attempted to appear at, and today we seem to have succeeded. We have since 2016 seen a drastic change in the rules of how a democracy, how a democratic society is supposed to function. The old society worked in I thought, a very elegant way. The idea was that you had basic rules. You'd let the other guy speak. He'd let you speak. You'd let the other guy govern. He would let you govern. And that's the way it worked. You know, if you're one of the older people in the room, you remember this working quite well for a very long time. Unfortunately, we live in a different age. And this is an age in which we can't expect basic decency. We can't expect any kind of grace from those who are our political opponents. Somehow we need to succeed in winning elections while maintaining our dignity, while maintaining our grace, while maintaining our justice and our goodness. Somehow we need to be able to do this. I know there's some young people on the political right who say, no, because this time of grace is ended. Because this time of decency is ended, that means that we don't need to be graceful and we don't need to be decent. So I have to tell you what an honor it has been for these past 5 years since we've started doing National Conservatism Conferences, to meet the so-called, the people in every country who are being discredited and accused of being against democracy and for authoritarianism. Every country has them. People who are accused of being authoritarians. People are accused of being indecent. And yet, what is it that we national conservatives who are so accused, what is it that we stand for? What is it that we want? We want the possibility of maintaining each of us, our own nation as an independent country. We want the possibility of being able to control our own borders. We want the possibility of being able to have our own legal system, our own judges, according to our legal and constitutional traditions, making decisions for our country. We want the possibility of controlling our own budgets, of being able to decide financial policy in such a way that it best advances the economy of our country. These don't sound like extraordinary things to ask. They're not extraordinary things to demand. And yet today, we pick up the newspaper and we get to see public figures in Brussels, the mayor of this or that district, saying to the newspapers, well, I heard what kind of people they were, and so I had to call the police and forbid them from coming. This is from the Brussels Times. Okay, look, all of you understand what's happening. You understand that there's an election less than 2 months away here in Europe, and there are other important elections throughout the West, in America and Britain. Here in Europe, there's going to be an election for the European Parliament less than 2 months away. And our adversaries find us so frightening, so threatening, that they can't possibly allow us to speak. Not even once to show up in Brussels and say what we have to say. So frightening is the idea of national independence. So frightening is the idea of national conservatism. Well, we don't know if we're going to win this time, but we do know that we're going to win. And the reason that we know that we're going to win is because what we're asking is decent, democratic things. We're asking for decency and we're asking for democracy. We're asking to uphold the inheritance of our forefathers and foremothers. It's not that much to ask. It's the right thing to ask. And in the end, this is going to triumph over the craziness, the insanity of what is beginning to pass as democracy, and God forbid we may have soon to describe as former democracy. It's my great honor this morning to be able to welcome you to 2 days of National Conservatism Conference. We have prime ministers and former prime ministers. We have ministers and former ministers from countries all over Europe, from America and Britain, from Israel. And the people gathering here are, in my view, they are the strongest and the best political leaders, public figures, intellectuals, academics, journalists. The best that we have joined in this fight in order to be able to make democracy work again, to be able to make the world safe for democracy, if I could coin a phrase. So I have a special honor this morning. In addition to opening the conference, I have a special honor of being able to introduce to you my good friend Ryszard Legutko. Ryszard is, as I believe you all know, Ryszard is a Polish philosopher. You know, like a philosophy professor. He writes books about philosophy. And Ryszard has, for decades now, served as well as a player in the political campaign for sanity and national sovereignty in Europe. His 2015 book, The Demon in Democracy, was, as it was called when translated into English. I'm not going to try to pronounce it in Polish. His 2015 book, The Demon in Democracy, gets credit really for having started our entire movement. National conservatism is born from the minute that Ryszard's book appears and asks, a very simple but very difficult question. Why is it that we who lived through communism, the actual communism, the Soviet Empire, the Marxist dictatorship over our countries, over Poland and other countries in the world, why is it that we who lived through communism feel so strangely as though we're reliving it again under what is supposed to be the rule of liberal democracy in Europe? And of course, by this point, we know the answer, at least the simple version of it. We know that liberal democracy isn't stable, and that it's liberal for a short time, and then it becomes less and less liberal until it is difficult to distinguish it from the Marxism of the past. Okay, so it's not the old Marxism with the proletariat, dictatorship of the proletariat. It's a new Marxism with a neo-Marxism, with a dictatorship of a university-educated elite that thinks it knows the answers to every question and that no public debate is really necessary. Ryszard wrote this for the first time in his brave book, and since then it's really become the framework for trying to understand what it is that's happening to us. Liberal democracy has a flaw in it. Maybe it has many flaws, but it has at least one flaw, which is that it's not stable, and it transforms itself before our very eyes into some form of neo-Marxist authoritarianism. In addition to being a professor and a writer of books, Ryszard has been a public crusader. We took, in the little promo video for this conference, you may have seen it, his wonderful speech before the European Parliament as a member of Parliament. in which he stands before Parliament and he says, is this a democracy? This is not a democracy. This is an oligarchy. This is a tyranny. It's a tyranny of the neo-Marxist woke ideology, which is slowly taking over. Ryszard has been the conscience of our movement and our generation. I'm personally grateful to him for introducing my own books to Poland, where I think they're going to be allowed to be read for a short time now. And really, when we say that our movement is made up of the best, the very finest people who are the bravest people who are speaking today on political matters, it's Ryszard that we think about. Please give a warm round of applause to Professor Ryszard Legutko.